Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
We have with us today Ambassador Gautam Bambawale, who was India's ambassador, India's envoy to Pakistan as well as China. Welcome to Print, sir. Just to quickly start off, you have noticed and you are seeing reports of what is happening between India and China at this point of time at the Galwan River Valley. Would you like to shed some light on that?
Nayanima, thank you, and I'm very happy to be with you. About what's happening on the India-China border, let me put it this way: that over the last few years, there has been building up of infrastructure not only on the Chinese side but on our side also. So we have been making roads over the last 7, 8, 10 years, and even longer. But it has got momentum in the last few years. And what has now happened is that many of our roads, much of our infrastructure is going all the way up to the border areas, close to the LAC. I hesitate to use the word LAC because there are differing perceptions of the LAC between India and China, but into the border areas. And as a result of this, what happens is that patrolling in these border areas, especially in the Ladakh region, has increased, and therefore the probability of patrols of the Indian side and the Chinese side coming into close contact or close proximity with each other has increased. So the probability of that has increased, and you can see that happening, again and again, not only in this year but also from 2013 onwards. 2014 again in Chumar. 2013 there was a face-off in Depsang, and 2017 of course was the big face-off in the eastern sector of Bhutan. So this is one of the reasons why these face-offs are taking place.
Okay, I do understand, sir, that there are certain kind of established mechanism protocol that both sides need to follow. In the recent standoff in the Galwan River Valley, will it be correct to say that the Chinese side violated certain protocols? We've seen one statement coming out from the Ministry of External Affairs that this time, the patrolling, there had been hindrances in Indian patrolling. So how do you view this particular move?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The statement put out by the Ministry of External Affairs clearly indicates that what the Chinese side is doing is that they are trying to prevent Indian patrols from going up to our perception of the LAC. And that is something which will lead to a face-off of this kind. What is also different is the fact that it is not only patrols of 25 or 30 or 40 forces or soldiers, but these are now larger groups of soldiers, some of them even going up into several hundreds, 400, 500, 600. And when you have such large numbers of troops from both sides in a close proximity situation, it's not a good thing because they could always get out of control. So far, at least, it has been peaceful. Not a shot has been fired. But the longer it goes on and the larger the number of troops, the more the likelihood and the probability of something out of the ordinary happening. So it's not a good thing. And I do hope that the two sides can quickly de-escalate these current situations.
Also, in terms of the informal summits, there's a question that constantly keeps coming up that, Prime Minister Modi, when he came in, it was a unique sort of, perspective that gave to the relationship, and both leaders are having a dialogue in an informal setup. That gives them more leeway to, have a heart-to-heart discussion, so to speak. So, in that kind of a scenario, how would you say? What would you say have the informal summits achieved so far?
Yeah. No, I think as far as the informal summits are concerned, let me talk about it at two levels. One is, of course, the better understanding of the motivations, of the desires of each side. So, for example, we have a better understanding of what China and President Xi Jinping means when he talks of the China dream. I think the Chinese side have a better understanding or what Prime Minister Modi means when he speaks of a new India. So at that level, I think there's definitely a better understanding. Coming down to the military aspects, which I think is what you are trying to hint at. I think where the military aspects are concerned, the two leaders have agreed that there is a need that the two militaries must stay away from each other and not get into the kind of situations that are happening right now in Ladakh and even in Sikkim. So I think what is required is that the desires and the wishes of the leadership should be relayed down to the ground troops, and we should find ways of de-escalating these current situations, and also then moving forward and trying to delineate one particular line which both sides will try to respect and will keep well behind of. So I think that's what we need to do in the coming months and in the coming weeks.
So when the present standoff sort of started, we did not see the diplomatic community. I mean, the Minister of External Affairs giving any statement, but we did see US talking about it. Ambassador Alice Wells, she'll be retiring later this month, but then she did come out with some very strong statements saying that this shows that how China's aggression and their motive of creating disturbances. How do you view US commenting on this? Is it for the first time? Do you think they commented because this time it is a serious issue?
No, my opinion is that they have commented because their own relations with China are at probably the worst juncture over the past 7, 8, 10 years. Also, there is no doubt that the relationship between the US and India has improved tremendously in the last few months and in the last few years. So we welcome, of course, this voicing of support for India's position on the India-China boundary. But at the same time, I think, the dynamics on the ground will be governed by the armed commanders, the army commanders on the ground, as well as by diplomatic and military discussions from the capitals of the two countries. So I think that's the direction in which this current standoff and the current standoffs are moving. So I hope that in the next few days, and if not the next few days, in the next week or so, that the standoff definitely at Galwan and in this neighborhood can be stood down and can be resolved by the two sides.
But as you rightly said, sir, that US and India are now having a different kind of relationship. Do you think that is sort of disturbing China? Also, the fact that India and US, they are now having a constant dialogue on Indo-Pacific and other strategic initiatives. Is it bothering China?
Yeah, look, the Indo-Pacific and the Quad definitely is something which bothers China, as you rightly said. But that does not mean that it is, the concept of Indo-Pacific is not aimed at China. It's not aimed at containing China. This has been made very clear by Prime Minister Modi himself a couple of years ago when he spoke at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. So I think what we need to do is we need to continue building our relationship with the United States. But at the same time, we need to ensure that our relationship with China also stays on track. We need to step up our discussions and our interactions with the Chinese too. And at the same time, we have to, in all of this, promote India's self-interest, India's national interest. So this is going to be a difficult task for Indian diplomacy, but I am quite confident that Indian diplomacy has the skills to achieve this.
Okay. So when you talk about the fact that talks need to be stepped up, do you think that once this, pandemic sort of subsides and India is now slowly opening up from the lockdown, there should be an immediate sort of, meeting of the SRs, the special representatives? Will that sort of calm the nerves, or, maybe the next informal summit will be waiting for? What do you think would be the immediate steps?
No, I think even before the SRs can meet, there has to be some groundwork which has been to be done by the two sides. And there is a mechanism in the India-China relationship, in India-China talks, where there is a mechanism of military and diplomatic officials meeting at lower levels. I think that must meet immediately after the COVID crisis is over, when people can actually travel. Perhaps that can even take place immediately after this standoff is resolved through video conferencing or Zoom, as we are doing right
Yes,
now.
yeah.
So I think there are many ways to do it, but I would definitely recommend that we should increase our interaction, increase our talks and our interactions with the Chinese, including on the boundary question.
And so one question that really comes to the reader's mind and everyone's mind, do you really think China is creating this disturbance and also sort of, pushing our neighbors like Nepal to do this kind of disturbance? We've seen the recent, steps taken by Nepal in terms of its new political map and the speech given by the Prime Minister. How do you see all that?
No, I think between India and Nepal, there is no doubt that Kala Pani is an issue.
Yes.
And we have been discussing it with Nepal in the past also. I don't know what was the reason and what was the immediate need to bring this up in Nepal-India relations. But I think that India will take care of its own national interests, whether it is Nepal, whether it is China. And in order to do that, I would recommend that we need to step up our interactions and our communications, our discussions, not only with China, but with also countries like Nepal. So I would strongly recommend that line and that route for Indian diplomacy.
So now coming to the question of Taiwan, the fact that India is now at the WHO Executive Council, and we've seen how US had been, making this overtures that India should recognize. Do you think that is also causing trouble within the Chinese mind? I mean, in the leadership's mind, and how should India be now viewing the one China policy, Taiwan? If you can explain all of that.
Yeah. No, you see, with Taiwan, Nayanima, as you know, we have always had an economic and cultural relationship. And we have a kind of informal office of in Taipei, which is called the India-Taipei Association. Similarly, the Taiwanese have an office in Delhi. This relationship between India and Taiwan is mainly on the economic and cultural aspects. And I think, in fact, we should step up our economic relationship with Taiwan, because they have investable surpluses and they have technologies which India requires. There have been many Taiwanese companies which have invested in India, and we should be seeking more investment from Taiwan. As far as the WHO is concerned and the WHA is concerned, I feel that, on such an important thing like public health, it's very important to have all players and all stakeholders inside the tent. So just as we do in the sports arena, in international sporting competition, Taiwan is allowed to participate as Chinese Taipei. So is there some way to be able to get Taiwan inside the tent where global public health is concerned? I think we should explore that, and I think that is a possibility which we should try working out, and perhaps we could succeed in that way.
So do you think this year there could be a chance for another informal summit between both the leaders, if not anything, but maybe virtually, if things sort of settle? And you think that is something that is required? Because we've not seen Prime Minister Modi, President Xi speaking after, March 20th. Do you think a dialogue is probably required at this point of time?
Look, what I would say is that I don't know if informal summit at the level of Prime Minister Modi and President Xi is required. But what has happened is that after the Mamlapuram or Chennai meeting between the two leaders, we have not had the time to follow up on what they agreed. I'll give you one example. On the economic side, it was agreed that the Vice Prime Minister, the Vice Premier of China, will hold a dialogue on trade, investment, finances with our finance minister.
Minister, yes.
That is something which has not been able to happen. Now, what I would recommend is that all those meetings should begin as soon as possible once international flights have started and once international meetings can take place. So, between the finance minister and the vice premier of China, perhaps between the defense ministers, and in order to prepare for the defense ministers, perhaps the defense secretaries, obviously people from the foreign ministries of the two countries. I think those are the conversations that we need to have, because after Mamlapuram and after Chennai, which is the same thing really, we've not really, which was in October 2019, we have not been able to have those discussions for various reasons, including, of course, the fact that COVID set in as early as end November in Wuhan. So I think that's the reason. But when a possibility opens up, I think those conversations should take place, and then the leaders can take stock whether they need to meet. So rather than starting at the top, I would say we should need to start from the lower levels of the governments of both India and China.
Okay. Coming to the fact that India recently supported an international coalition, a draft resolution on investigating at the origin of the virus, the coronavirus, which is something that China has also agreed upon, but they've said that it has to be transparent, independent, and without any politics around it. How do you see that move taken by India? I mean, the draft resolution did not mention China. But do you think this is sort of a change of stance by India?
No, I think, the COVID-19 and the Wuhan virus, if you want to call it that, is one of the largest public health problems that has been seen by the world in over a century. And therefore, I think it is absolutely essential from a humanitarian point of view. It is absolutely essential that the international community, the world at large, and humanity at large should go into the origins and the way this virus has spread. And the reason for that is, as has been brought out in the resolution itself, that it is for the good of mankind. We must learn our lessons from this round of such a huge pandemic with so many people dead, so many people infected, and so many people affected by the economics and the economic lockdown which took place. So I think it is for humanitarian and humanity's sake that we need to go into the origins as well as the reasons for the spread of this virus, and then draw lessons from it. That's what the WHO resolution says, and I do hope that every country participates in it in an open and transparent manner, because only humanity can benefit from that.
So my last question to you obviously will be regarding Pakistan. You were our High Commissioner there. How do you see Pakistan is now? We've also seen a spike in cross-border violence in the month of April, and also in May, and also in March. There was a spike in violence even on that side of the border as well. Going forward in a post-COVID world, how do you see these two countries coming up? India has not changed its stance that terror and talks can go together. But in a post-COVID world, how do you see India, Pakistan sort of working the dynamics out?
No, if I were asked by my friends in Pakistan about what my advice to them is, my response would be that, look, Pakistan needs to focus on itself, on its economy, on its people, on education, on public health. And therefore, if in order to do that, they must eschew terrorism, they must give up terrorism, cross-border terrorism. This is something which, they will be beneficial to them themselves, because they will then be able to focus on their own problems and their own issues. So that is what I would recommend to them. And I hope that Pakistan sees the light of day and stops fomenting terrorism in India. And there's no doubt that talks and terror really cannot go together.
And also the FATF meeting will be coming up by the month of October. A final decision probably will be taken. Do you see any outcome coming out of that?
I really don't know what will be the outcome of the FATF meeting, but I would once again recommend to my friends in Pakistan that they must implement what the FATF has said, not for someone else, not for the international community or for India, but for their own benefit and for their own good. And it's only if they do that and eschew terrorism that they will be able to focus on their own problems, their own issues, which need a large amount of focus and attention.
Mhm. Thank you, Ambassador Vambawale. Thank you for talking to us and giving us your inputs. Please take care.